This man was cursed to be trapped in the tutorial tower for 12 years. Every time he cleared the final floor, he was sent back to the beginning. After hundreds of attempts, he grew frustrated and gave up. On his 433rd attempt, he even disguised himself as a beginner guide NPC, and by the 512th attempt, he became a training instructor just for fun. Without realizing it, 12 years had passed, until suddenly, a notification appeared. The curse will be lifted if you clear the tower this time. Could this finally be his freedom? But how did it all begin? One day, monsters began appearing all around the world, bringing destruction and panic. At the same time, a mysterious structure emerged, and people called it the Tutorial Tower. For the first time, humanity had to face this tower. Without mercy, the tower transported people from all over the world into it, forcing them to face brutal trials. Age, physical condition, or background didn't matter. The success rate for exiting the tower was only 20%, and those who succeeded were called hunters, humans with extraordinary abilities who became the new hope for mankind. For 12 years, the Tutorial Tower remained a mystery. However, when it was finally conquered for the first time, the world changed. Hunters became symbols of power and the new idols of society. Their fame and wealth rivaled that of celebrities. Nations began to consider hunters as a factor of national strength. To protect them, hunter associations and guilds were formed to maintain stability. In a famous television show all about hunters, the host introduced 3 special guests, the leaders of the best guilds in Korea: Seo Kwan-han from Guild Goryeo, Seo Yong-lee from Guild Orangs, and Si-hyun Kim from Guild Seoul. The program gained massive popularity, with a rating of 35.7% last week. During the last segment of the show, the host asked the most frequently asked question from viewers. It's said there's a master who still lives in the Tutorial Tower in Korea. Who is this master? The 3 guests looked surprised hearing the question. The host continued, mentioning that he had read stories about this master online. He then asked, "Do the guild leaders know who this master is?" With a smile, Seo Kwan-han replied, "There's been a lot of news about him lately. It seems he's not dead and is still alive." His answer indicated that he knew who the master was. Seo Yong-lee added, "Everyone knows about him. He entered the tower with us in the first wave, 12 years ago." Si-hyun Kim said that it might be a curse because only this master never left the tower. He completed every level only to return to the first and repeat it. The host tried to confirm, so this person entered the tower in the first wave, 12 years ago, and kept completing it over and over. The 3 of them nodded in agreement. Then the question arose, if the purpose of entering the tower was to gain power, would someone who has completed it multiple times have unimaginable strength? Some hunters who came out of the tower shared stories about this individual. They had seen the master complete the tutorial floor in just one day, an impossible feat. They suspected his power surpassed that of a normal hunter, possibly even on the level of rank A or S. However, even after conquering the tower, this person stayed inside and kept repeating it tirelessly. In one story, a party was seen running in fear, chased by a huge monster. But in the middle of the hallway, a man stood still, not moving at all. Suddenly, a massive explosion echoed, destroying the walls around him. Yet, the man remained standing fearlessly. Soon, a notification appeared. Tutorial Tower Level 100, monster for the final test. Before the man, a terrifying figure appeared, a giant monster named Balok. Many believed that if this man left the tower, he would undoubtedly become one of the strongest hunters. However, rumors about him continued to spark debates. Some claimed to have seen the master defeat 3 werewolves alone at level 72, or kick a level 10 monster with ease. But many believed these stories were just myths. In reality, the man fought Balok using only his feet. He stepped on the monster's head, smiling with a psychopathic expression. In just 3 seconds, Balok was defeated. A notification appeared. Balok defeated with the final blow. Casually, the man stepped on the fallen monster's body, wondering to himself, what else should I do to make this more interesting? Over the last 12 years, the time it takes for prospective hunters to complete the tutorial tower has gotten shorter. The tutorial tower across the world has the same content, so there have been no significant changes in the challenges faced. Because of this, each time a new group of hunters manages to make it out, information about their strategies and attack methods spreads worldwide. Many countries have raced to share this information to improve the survival chances of participants and to create the best hunters. However, despite more refined strategies and broader knowledge, only a few manage to conquer the tower. When prospective hunters reach level 99, they face the final trial, Balok, the ruler of the tutorial tower. This terrifying monster has become a nightmare for many. Of the 95 participants who managed to reach this level, only 25 made it out alive, while the rest lost their lives. Balok became a symbol of fear and an almost impossible challenge to overcome. However, there was one figure who was different. He was a man known as the Master, someone who had completed the tutorial tower 1,349 times. Standing in front of the exit portal of the tower, he closed his eyes, hoping that this time he could finally leave. But, as always, when he opened his eyes, he was back at the first level. The conquest began again. This time, it was his 1,350th. Seeing this reality, he could only laugh bitterly. Frustrated, he shouted, wanting to go home, wanting to leave the tower. But his cries echoed in vain. He collapsed, lying on the ground, staring blankly at the information screen. His name was Hyunwoo Kim. He was 24 years old. In his heart, he thought repeating this over and over would no longer bring any new experiences. There were no more challenges, only the emptiness that kept repeating. 12 years ago, when Hyunwoo and his team first entered the tutorial tower, everything felt different. They were the first group to successfully reach level 100. Standing in front of the portal, they laughed happily, confident that their struggle was over. They promised each other to stay in touch in the outside world. But something strange happened. When Hyunwoo stepped into the portal, he suddenly found himself back at the first level. His friends were nowhere to be seen, and he was alone. Confusion turned into frustration as he realized he was trapped in the tower. In the subsequent repeats, he began to realize that he gained new abilities. But along with that, he also received the tower's curse. This curse prevented him from leaving. The only way to lift it was to complete the tower alone, without anyone's help. He tried everything. In the first 10 repeats, Hyunwoo strengthened himself, pushing his abilities to their maximum. In the end, even the stone pillars in the tower could be easily destroyed. But every time he reached level 100 and defeated Balok, he would always return to the first level. 5 years passed. In desperation, Hyunwoo tried everything to break the curse, but all his efforts were in vain. Eventually, he began to accept his fate. In repeat 433, he tried role-playing as an NPC, helping other participants who had just entered the tower. In repeat 512, he became an instructor, training new hunters to survive. However, there was one thing he couldn't stand, hearing stories about the outside world from participants who were about to leave. Every time he heard those stories, the feeling of isolation haunted him even more. Time passed, and Hyunwoo went through repeat after repeat without purpose, until finally, 12 years had passed. When he opened the information screen, he didn't expect anything to change. However, this time there was a new message that surprised him. The system notified him that Hyunwoo had completed the tower and was finally able to leave. Hyunwoo remained silent. After a moment, he smiled, then burst into joyful laughter. With the passion that had long been lost, he prepared to conquer the tower once again, this time for the last time. With burning determination, he took his stance, shot forward, and began tearing through each level of the tower at an incredible speed. Now, there was only one thing on his mind: the freedom he had been waiting for. Generally, the fastest time to complete the tutorial tower is around 10 months. In a popular TV program, the host asked whether the hunters from the 18th wave could break that record. SAO Young Lee explained that the number of hunters entering each wave differs, and the outcome heavily depends on their power combinations. Changes in strategy and results would occur frequently. Sehyun Kim added that success also depends on the individual and the effectiveness of their attacks. SEO Kwan Han interjected that the real challenge begins after level 51, as from that point, bosses with higher difficulty levels appear every 10 levels. He emphasized that from there on, luck no longer plays a role. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo, with renewed energy, continued charging forward, breaking through each level without concern for the monsters in his way. He pressed on relentlessly until he finally reached level 99. There, he stood calmly, facing Balok, the ruler. With all his strength, he struck the monster with such a devastating blow that the effects were even visible from outside the tower. The next day, in Hangdong District, Cheonho, at the entrance management area of the tutorial tower, a dimensional portal suddenly appeared. This event caused a stir at the monitoring office managed by the Korean Hunter Association. The association quickly prepared a list of names for the 18th wave participants to record who successfully made it out. From the portal emerged a human figure. It was Hyunwoo. He stepped out, looking around with a relieved expression. The towering buildings in front of him were a clear sign that he had finally made it out of the tower. Hyunwoo chuckled softly, surveying his surroundings, ensuring he was truly back in the outside world. Soon after, an association officer approached him to congratulate him on his success in leaving the tower. Hyunwoo turned to him, double-checking by asking if he had really made it out. The officer, though confused, confirmed that Hyunwoo had indeed exited the tower. Hearing this, Hyunwoo beamed, his eyes welling up. He shouted joyfully, "I'm out! Hyunwoo Kim is back!" The association officer, hearing his name, immediately checked the list of the 18th wave participants, but Hyunwoo Kim's name was not there. Curious, he checked the first wave list. That's when he found Hyunwoo's name at the top. The officer was stunned to realize that the person in front of him was the legendary figure known as the Master, who had finally exited the tower after 12 years. A week later, the world's attention turned to Korea. People from all over the globe flocked to the tutorial headquarters, where the first evaluation of the 18th wave hunters would take place. This wave attracted attention because the world record for completing the tower was shattered, with a time of just 2 weeks. However, the main spotlight was still on Hyunwoo, the master hunter. In the evaluation waiting room, the 18th wave hunters appeared busy preparing themselves. They wore the basic gear provided earlier for the exam. But in the corner of the room, Hyunwoo sat relaxed, casually snacking without any gear on. The other participants felt confused and uncomfortable seeing Hyunwoo's relaxed attitude. Not realizing the situation, Hyun-woo asked one of the participants, "What is everyone wearing?" The participant explained that the gear had been distributed earlier that morning and was crucial for the exam. Without the gear, the exam would be much more difficult. Hyun-woo simply scratched his head, guessing he hadn't received the gear because he had overslept. Suddenly, an announcement echoed, instructing the participants to head to the exam location. The exam area was a special labyrinth designed by the Seoul Tutorial Center to evaluate the hunters' ranks. There, an examiner named David, an A-class hunter, stood in front of the participants. In a loud voice, he announced that the rank evaluation would begin soon. David informed the participants that the eyes of the world were on them. Some participants seemed burdened by the pressure. Seeing this, David smiled and tried to ease the tension. He explained that they didn't need to be overly nervous because compared to the challenges of the tutorial tower, this exam was just a formality to certify them as hunters. At the back of the room, Hyun-woo wasn't paying attention. He yawned and appeared sleepy. David continued his explanation, introducing the first exam. As he pressed something on his phone, a violent tremor shook the ground, startling the participants. Calmly, David explained that, as hunters, they needed to be prepared for various challenges, including escaping tricky situations like the labyrinth. The tremor had turned the floor behind David into a large labyrinth. He explained that the labyrinth was filled with traps. Although the exam was just a formality, he advised the participants to use all their strength. They had 30 minutes to escape the labyrinth. The participants quickly prepared and entered the labyrinth with high spirits, running and competing to be the first to get out. Seeing their enthusiasm, David praised their excellent mindset and looked forward to the results. However, while he was still deep in thought, Hyun-woo suddenly called out to him from behind. David turned, slightly confused, and asked what Hyun-woo wanted. Calmly, Hyun-woo asked, "Can I escape the labyrinth however I want?" David, curious about this participant, lowered his sunglasses and stared at Hyun-woo closely. Seeing that Hyun-woo wasn't wearing any gear like the others, David wondered if he was serious about the exam. But, as explained earlier, David replied that as long as he could get out by any means, it was allowed. He then asked seriously, "Are you underestimating this exam?" However, Hyun-woo responded casually, telling David to focus more on the other participants who were struggling. Upon hearing this, David's anger began to show. He felt that Hyun-woo was too arrogant, but Hyun-woo remained relaxed and confidently said, "How about we bet 1,000,000 won? I can escape the labyrinth in 20 seconds. David furrowed his brow, not believing what he was hearing, but Hyun-woo kept provoking him. "If you're scared, maybe you shouldn't bet," he said. Feeling challenged, David reluctantly agreed to the bet, though still doubtful. Hyun-woo walked toward the nearest wall of the labyrinth, placed his hand on the wall, and got into position. His left hand touched the wall, while his right hand prepared to strike. Seriously, he exerted a small percentage of his strength. The energy pressure he unleashed was so intense that his feet sank into the floor. David, watching closely, was confused about what Hyun-woo was going to do. Even Hyun-woo's old friends, who were the leaders of Korea's top guilds, seemed puzzled by his actions. When the power in his right hand was fully gathered, Hyun-woo punched the labyrinth wall with tremendous force. The wall seemed to soften momentarily before his fist broke through. The punch caused an incredible effect, destroying the labyrinth until it pierced through to the other side. Calmly, Hyun-woo walked toward the exit he had just created. Standing casually, he said, "I'm out." The observers in the observation room were stunned by the spectacle. Even his friends started to wonder if Hyun-woo was always this casual. He smiled, imagining the 1,000,000 won he would soon earn so easily. However, that smile slowly turned into a worried expression as he thought, "Will I have to compensate for destroying the labyrinth?" Meanwhile, 24 hours before the ranking evaluation exam, at a building called Live Hunter magazine, where news about hunters is updated, journalists were discussing what interesting news they would release. In addition to talking about the master, one man suggested highlighting a person who was gaining attention as a powerful hunter from the martial arts world. That person was named Lee Kang-hyun. During the labyrinth exam earlier, Lee Kang-hyun had made up his mind to become the star. With the talent, skill, and luck he possessed, he was sure he would catch everyone's eye. When other hunters fled in fear from a giant monster before them, Kang-hyun boldly prepared to face the monster with his sword. In his mind, he believed in his abilities. As a level 4 kendo master, Lee Kang-hyun had won various international kendo competitions and was known as a tough leader. This time, he hoped to be the center of attention, believing that the path to success was wide open for him. However, his mind wandered back to his first encounter with Hyun-woo at the tower tutorial. When they first met in front of the exit portal, Hyun-woo had shouted with excitement, stealing the entire spotlight that should have been his. Kang-hyun, who felt confused and annoyed by that incident, now found himself facing Hyun-woo again in the outside world. He felt he had to compete with someone completely different from him. Meanwhile, an announcement came from the exam committee stating that, for security reasons, the first labyrinth exam would be temporarily halted. Participants were asked to return to the waiting room and wait for the rescheduled exam. Chaos erupted in the reporter's room as they scrambled to find footage of the earlier event. However, all the clear footage only showed Lee Kang-hyun. This was because, at first, no one had noticed Hyun-woo, the disheveled figure wearing flip-flops. But now, that person was the center of attention. In the participants' waiting room, the tension was palpable. Kang Hyun sat with a serious and angry expression, while Hyun Woo was peacefully asleep. The other participants whispered about the explosion caused by Hyun Woo. Some even referred to him as the Master. But in his own mind, Lee Kang-hyun was undeterred. He thought to himself that this wasn't over, and there was still a chance for him to reclaim the spotlight. Soon, another announcement came from the exam committee. The order of the ranking evaluation exams has been changed and will resume in 15 minutes. Participants are asked to prepare. Hyun Woo, who had been sound asleep, woke up with a groggy face. Meanwhile, Lee Kang-hyun remained lost in thought. He didn't care who Hyun Woo was, whether he was a master or not. Kang-hyun was confident in his own skills. This time, the exam was the Monster Wave evaluation, where participants had to fight virtual monsters created with the latest technology and magical stones. Lee Kang-hyun entered the arena with full confidence. With his sword in hand, he unleashed an incredible amount of power. Lightning struck through his sword, grabbing everyone's attention. Full of energy, Kang-hyun launched continuous attacks, cutting down the monsters that stood in his way. One by one, the monsters fell quickly. This exam required participants to defeat as many monsters as possible within the time limit. When Kang-hyun's time ran out, he had managed to defeat 78 monsters, the highest among all previous participants. Kang-hyun smiled in satisfaction. Finally, he had earned the spotlight he had long desired. The reporters watching from another room praised his greatness. However, that pride didn't last long. The next name called was Hyun Woo Kim. With a sleepy expression, Hyun Woo casually walked into the arena. Kang-hyun looked irritated by his relaxed attitude. The audience, who knew that the next contestant was the Master, was extremely curious to see his performance. Even Hyun Woo's old friends, who had once been in the same party with him, were eagerly waiting. Hyun Woo was given 2 minutes to defeat as many monsters as possible. All eyes were on him. The atmosphere grew tense, waiting for what the Master would do. The test began with numerous monsters spawning around Hyun Woo. At the same time, a 10-second countdown began, giving him time to prepare. The audience waited eagerly, still wondering what kind of action the Master would show. However, Hyun Woo, standing casually in the middle of the arena, simply sighed, unaffected by the atmosphere. Even as the timer hit 0, he remained calm and made no significant movement. When the countdown finished and the test officially began, a large orc attacked first, swinging its massive club brutally. But with incredible speed, Hyun Woo suddenly rushed toward the orc. In an instant, the orc's head was shattered. The action was so fast that it couldn't be followed by the human eye. The audience only saw the end result. The orc's head simply exploded. Only 4 seconds had passed, but the monsters around Hyun Woo had already fallen one by one. All that was visible were their heads, seemingly exploding for no reason. The audience watching this unfold began to speculate. Many thought Hyun Woo was using magic to destroy the monsters. However, in reality, Hyun Woo was attacking each monster directly, approaching them one by one and crushing their heads with a simple physical strike. There were no complicated techniques or magic behind his actions. His movements were so fast that everything seemed like an illusion. Hyun Woo's old friends watching from a distance were stunned. They wondered what Hyun Woo had actually been doing in the tutorial tower. All they knew was that Hyun Woo had always been known as a big name. But now, they realized one thing. Hyun Woo had turned into something far more terrifying, a monster in human form. When the timer hit 0, signaling the end of the test, Hyun Woo stood relaxed. In just 2 minutes, he had defeated 248 monsters, an incredible achievement. Hyun Woo's actions quickly became the center of attention. A video of his test was uploaded with the title, The Master, and it quickly went viral. Many people questioned his strength. Some even assumed that Hyun Woo was an S-class magician. Elsewhere, Lee Kang-hyun watched the news on his phone. His face turned red. His hands trembled. The spotlight he had just gained was now completely shifted to Hyun Woo. It's unfair! In his rage, he destroyed his phone, throwing it until it shattered into pieces. Not only that, but the door of his room was also destroyed, and the surrounding walls cracked. He shouted in frustration, cursing Hyun Woo as a cheater and an absurd character. I've worked so hard, fought desperately, even hunted one extra monster when the other participants were already finished. But now, all his efforts felt wasted. On the other side, Hyun Woo remained calm in his room. Suddenly, a woman named Alice came to visit him. Alice worked as an information manager and was part of the Korea Hunter Committee. She spoke at length, explaining the purpose of her visit. However, Hyun Woo, who wasn't interested, only listened half-heartedly. In short, Alice had come personally to recruit Hyun Woo to join the Ari's Guild. She handed him a contract. The contract contained the rights and responsibilities of Ari's Guild members, including payment details. When Hyun Woo read it, he was surprised by the first clause. Once the contract is signed, the down payment amount listed will be paid in full to the member. Hyun Woo counted the zeros on the number listed. The numbers seemed so long. Alice smiled and asked, "So, are you interested in joining?" Hyun Woo just remained silent. He couldn't even imagine what it would feel like to receive an advance payment of 10 billion won. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.